Today we're going to take a walk around the Pearl District. I've also got some driving footage for you at the end of this video so you can really get a good feel and a good look at how things are doing around this area. And if you're thinking about buying a home in 2024, there's some big changes coming up here in the next few months if you haven't heard. I want to talk to you about those. I want to give you some information that's going to kind of help you guide you through these changes that we'll expect to see here in the near future. Stick around. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, Living in Oregon. I'm your host, Seth Marchant, and today we're going to take a little look at the Pearl District. I'm guessing that you've heard of it. It's a very popular area, not just for locals, but for tourists. This is the trendy part of Portland. This is the part where a lot of the best restaurants and nightlife and boutiques and shopping and a lot of the draw for downtown is towards the Pearl District. So this has been a trendy area for quite a long time. This used to be an industrial area. We're still sort of surrounded by industrial, so a lot of the buildings down here have sort of an industrial flair to them. You know, they've got that exposed ductwork, which you see quite a bit. You probably see that in your city too, not uncommon. Actually, was looking at renting or leasing an office from a guy one time that told me that he invented the exposed ductwork look. Quite the bold claim. Didn't end up leasing an office from him. But that's the kind of feel that you have around here. It's also got a very artistic feel to it. So you're gonna see like a lot of art pieces, just a lot of little flair weaved into the city, like artistic pavers around, you know, the walking spaces. So it's got that whole like artsy industrial type of vibe. And because this area's been so popular, even since I was a kid, I actually came over here to get a haircut when I was in high school. Why? Well, because you can get a cooler haircut over in the Pearl District than wherever it is that you normally get a haircut, of course. If you're thinking about living somewhere like this, you're gonna be looking at a lot of condos and apartments. You've got a mix of new high-rises, but you've got also a lot of historic buildings as well. Like I said, a lot of industrial, a lot of that's been converted to you know, things like lofts. And there's kind of a big push to convert commercial to residential, you know, with the work from home and a lot of commercial space being vacant. Portland's got some of the highest vacancy commercial space in the country, although that is difficult to do. It's not easy to convert commercial space into condos. So you have a good mix of different types of living here. You can see some of the high rises here in the background. And as far as prices go, you're looking at like 300s to 400s for a one bed. If you want to get to like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, you're looking at getting towards like the 500s and the 600s. And of course, on up into the millions. There's probably at least a couple units just right behind me right now that are in the multiple millions. Those are usually like 3 beds, 3,000 to 4,000 square feet. So you do also have quite a few luxury units. Now, if you're looking for single family, you're not gonna find really any single family until you go about 10 to 12 blocks west of here towards the West Hills, up towards Nob Hill. This entire area is also known as the Alphabet District. There's a bridge and a road that sort of separates downtown proper from this side over here where the Pearl District is. Just had to stop there and escape some of that noise. Hopefully it's not too bad in the background. I had to hop across the road there, and anytime I'm out shooting these videos, it's uncanny how often I run into construction. I apologize for the noise in the background. What I was saying, Burnside is what separates downtown and this section over here, the Alphabet District. And it's called the Alphabet District because the roads from south to north go alphabetically, east to west go numerically. So Burnside, Cooch, Davis, Everett, Flanders, Gleason, so on and so forth. So it's not too hard to, if you can remember that, to find your way around here. The last time I shot a video around here a couple months ago was over by the waterfront, that direction, maybe just about a half a mile or so from here. One request that we get is people just want to see what things look like, see how the city's doing. That's the reason why I'm going to include some driving footage at the end of this video so you can really just kind of get a look for things. You don't have to stare at me the whole time. But the last time I did this video, I came down here, there was a big cleanup. It was actually a cleanup organized by a group called We Believe in Portland. So there's a lot of people out cleaning up trash. That video actually got published just sort of coincidentally, just by chance, I guess, on Earth Day. And so it looked like I actually went downtown on Earth Day with all these people cleaning up, when in actuality the video was shot 3 days before. Just so you know, when we shoot these videos, they don't get uploaded the same day. Way too much work. So I had some people kind of saying that, you know, I just went downtown on a day when it was a good look for Portland. I guess there's always going to be the naysayers, but to put the cherry on top, maybe about 3, 4, 5 days later, Portland, of course, was unable to avoid these college protesters protesting, you know, the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. But unlike so many other campuses, a lot of campuses throughout the country, they occupy those areas with tents. Don't quite have the space here in downtown Portland, which is where Portland State University is, to put up a bunch of tents. I guess you would think we do. So instead they occupied the library. Ended up doing quite a bit of damage to the library, hundreds of thousands of dollars damage. Library will be closed for months, you know, indefinitely. And so a lot of people ended up watching my video right around the time that was going on. And in the video, you know, if you want to watch the video, you can watch it here, but I'm sort of painting a rosy picture, optimistic picture of Portland, which I think is accurate. I'm an optimist, but I do think it is accurate to say that we are trending in a direction that most people think is the right direction. And so that's kind of the picture I was painting in the video. And as people were listening to me talk about how Portland is trending in the right direction, they were also seeing protesters destroying the library at Portland State. Now, I fully support our constitutional right to protest. All of us should, but the line ends when you start destroying property. Of course, they could have had their protest without destroying the library. So that wasn't a good look for that last video. But with the exception of that, I will say, and I will maintain what I said in the last video, in that I think that Portland is headed in the right direction. Probably the two biggest complaints that we hear is trash and graffiti. And it does look significantly cleaner, at least to me. There's definitely significantly more efforts to clean trash up around the city. I've definitely noticed it, especially over the last year or so. And there's also been quite a bit of graffiti, though. That's one complaint. That, you know, the problem with the graffiti is that everybody has a different idea of what art is and how much of it we should have. I think most people are starting to feel like we might have a little bit too much. In fact, today there is a 5-mile cleanup on Interstate 84 between I-205 and I-5 currently going on. Probably the biggest graffiti cleanup we've ever had. I feel sorry for anybody that's stuck on I-84. I looked at the map right now and it's just a parking lot over there. But in general, I think things look cleaner, the city looks better, there's less trash, less graffiti. I think people seem to feel safer. So for that reason, you know, I will maintain that I think the city is headed in the right direction. Okay, now I wanted to talk to you about, if you're thinking about buying a home, what are going to be some of the changes that are coming here in the near future. And, you know, a lot of the information that we talk about and that we share in this video is just basically prompted by our customers, conversations that we have with customers, questions that people ask us, things that people want to know. And one thing that I see, and I'm seeing more of, are buyers reaching out directly to a listing agent. Now, if you haven't heard, at the beginning of this year, there were some major changes to the way real estate transactions are going to be done. And it was, you can just look up the NAR lawsuit, or we have a video on it if you want to check out the video. The short of the long, the most important kind of detail that you need to know about this lawsuit that happened recently is that two things. Buyer's agent commission will no longer be allowed to be advertised on our local MLS. The MLS is the multiple listing service. It's the place where realtors upload their listings with all the pictures and information, and that's what things like Realtor.com, Zillow, Redfin, that's where they get all of their data populated from is from local MLSs. So no advertising buyer's agent commission, and buyer's agents will also need to have a contract before they can work with buyers, just like a seller does. When somebody sells their home, they sign a contract with the listing agent. Buyers will also now need a contract. Now the contracts aren't new. There's been buyer's agent contracts in the past, but we just didn't use them that much. And between you and me, the few times that I have used them, the way they typically work, at least for me, is if you don't want to work with me, we're not going to work with each other. If I don't want to work with you, we're not going to work with each other. So regardless of the contract, the feeling is going to have to be mutual. So basically, if anybody wants to kind of, step away, part ways, it's not hard to do with myself or with most realtors. It's also not uncommon for people to want to do either too. If you're not wanting to work with me, there's probably something wrong. And we're probably not going to be able to have a working relationship going forward anyway, so the contract is sort of moot. So going forward, working with a buyer's agent, there will be no advertised buyer's agent commission, and you will need to sign a contract. All this is going to take place starting August 17th. A lot of these changes are being implemented now though, of course. But the thing I really wanted to talk to you about, and the purpose of these videos is to give you value. So I want to give you a little bit of value, because one thing that I'm seeing more of, like I mentioned, is buyers reaching out directly to listing agents. And buyers are having difficulty with that. So why is that? Why are buyers having difficulty speaking to listing agents? I've gotten this feedback quite a bit. I have sold at least one home in the past year where the buyers initially reached out to the listing agent and ended up using me to represent them as their buyer's agent. And their story is pretty common to a lot of other stories that I've heard in the past. Now let's head down this way. In that, they don't always have the best experience with the listing agent. Some people say that the listing agent's not helpful, they're not giving them the information that they want. One thing that you need to know, if you are a home buyer and you reach out directly to a listing agent, one thing you need to know is that this is not common behavior. And one thing that us real estate brokers deal with pretty commonly are scammers. People trying to scam us. I'm not privy to every single scam or how they work or why they do what they do. But one thing that scammers will do, I've had this happen to me, I've listed a home before and somebody reached out to me and told me that they wanted to buy the home, but they didn't want to use a buyer's agent. They didn't want to give me a reason why. And once we start digging in, come to find out they don't want to use any professionals. They don't want to use a title company or an attorney or anything else, which raises a lot of red flags. I don't know what their scam was, but it turns out that they were a scammer trying to get something out of me. And this is just not uncommon. So a lot of listing agents, when somebody reaches out to them that's unrepresented by a realtor or a real estate broker, oftentimes it's somebody that has a malicious intent. So listing agents that have their spidey senses start tingling, so to speak, when they get somebody calling them that's not represented. If you call a listing agent and you get a funny reaction, that might be the reason why. Now the next reason, and I've dealt with this myself as well, is just simply viability. The people that are not represented by buyer's agents, come to find out there's a reason why they weren't able to say get pre-approved, and that didn't seem to deter them from still trying to buy a home. So one realtor won't work with them, so then they go on to the next realtor and they have some sort of weird excuse as to why realtors won't work with them. And maybe they reach out to a listing agent at some point. So listing agents, for those reasons, and there's a handful more, are oftentimes skeptical of people reaching out to them directly that aren't represented. And then another thing that you're going to run into, it is legal in Oregon, but it is illegal in many states to have dual representation. Many listing agents don't want to represent the buyer. They don't want to represent both sides. Now, you as a consumer, not knowing any of these things or laws, rules, ethics, of course, the listing agent would want to get both sides, both commissions, if they can, right? But there's a ton of liability. But there's a ton of liability in doing so. And even more than the liability, if you think about it, A listing agent's fiduciary duty is to the seller, meaning that throughout all negotiations, it is the listing agent's duty to do everything they can to accomplish the goals of the seller, which is typically mostly to sell their home for the highest price. And it's just not possible for somebody to represent the seller and another buyer at the same time, especially in negotiations. You can't negotiate for both sides at the same time. I sold a house a few months ago, actually, that was previously pending. Whenever we see a house that's pending and then comes back to the market, we always have to ask the reason why. Well, the listing agent told me that he accepted an offer from somebody that was unrepresented and chose to represent that person as both the buyer's agent and the listing agent. Things broke down in the negotiations, of course. The deal fell out of contract. They had to take the home back to the market. So that story is not uncommon. Not uncommon for somebody to get burned trying to double end a deal. And it probably only takes once to get burned before you never ever do it again, right? So for all of you buyers thinking about reaching out to a listing agent and having that listing agent represent you, just know that that listing agent might be very wary of talking to you, and especially of representing you. Now, the last little tip before we go here, and I'm going to show you some driving footage. Last little tip that I'm just going to give you, but again, I just want this to be value, because I want you to get value from this, because there are a lot of people that are going to, especially after this new NAR legislation, try and work deals on their own. And I'm going to give you a little tip. As a former professional poker player, one thing that I have noticed much in the past is most people don't have much of a poker face when it comes to negotiations. Most of the time, a buyer will not encounter the seller or the seller's agent. They won't see them, they won't speak to them, there won't be any sort of communication. But if you're going to go unrepresented, then yes, there is going to be some interaction between you and the other side. And whenever there is, I've noticed that buyers tend to give up a lot of information. Now, some of the information you might be giving up, you might feel like is harmless, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen or heard of somebody giving up information that caused a problem. So much so that when we do a home inspection, it's customary for the sellers to vacate the home while we're there, just so the buyers and sellers don't engage with each other. The very few times that the sellers have not vacated, in my experience, I've actually run into an issue one time. Got a house under contract with some people that was furnished, and the seller came by during the inspection and made a comment about taking 2 of the chairs from one of the bedrooms because they were his favorite chairs, which in the deal, we had agreed to leave all of the furniture. Now, that's a very awkward conversation for me as the agent to have to stop and say during the middle of inspection, of which the seller's not even supposed to be there, hey, wait a second, no, you're not taking those chairs. And so I didn't have that conversation because it was very awkward. Instead, I did what I was supposed to do, which is speak to their representation, speak to their listing agent, and explain to them why he cannot take those chairs. So there's just going to be so many situations where you're just not even going to realize that some conversations can make things awkward, some information can be used against you. It's kind of like when you get arrested, what do they tell you? Anything can be and will be used against you in a court of law. It's the same thing in real estate transactions. Any information you as a buyer give to the seller, they're going to potentially use it against you if they can, whether it's to make more money, maybe they don't like you, who knows what it is, but it's always best, if you can, to never engage with the other side. And I will say, I don't want to make it sound like that's always the case, especially when you get to the higher price points, the move up type price points, 700,000, 800,000, typically you do find things tend to become much more cordial, but you just never know, and it's never worth risking it. So just be careful what information you give to the other side. If you want to talk more about this, if you're thinking about buying a home or selling, we do work with sellers as well in Oregon and Washington. We're licensed in Washington as well. I invite you to call, text, email, find all the contact information below. You can hit that QR code from your TV. That'll take you to our website where you can also find all of our contact information. We release videos like this all the time. We've got over 100 videos on our channel. So if you want to see more videos about what it's like to live in Oregon, especially around the Portland, Vancouver metropolitan area. A lot of our videos are just showing you the neighborhoods, talking to you about the neighborhoods, pros and cons, things like that. If you want to see more content that's really going to give you a feel for the lifestyle in Oregon, this is the channel to subscribe to. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if this video helped you, give me a thumbs up and feel free to comment. We always comment back. We always like to hear your feedback. Let me know how you think the Pearl is doing lately or anything else about the Pearl. There's so many great places here in the Pearl, parks, restaurants, boutiques, shops, you know, so anybody that wants to weigh in about your favorite place to visit in the Pearl, any stories about the Pearl, feel free to comment below. Until next time, take care, everyone.
you.